Okay, I'm about to go live, everyone. Good afternoon, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? Well, maybe President Trump can complain. He just did it for the last hour, and he has reason to complain. People ripping America off, apparently. It looks like it, and wondering what the true executive power toolbox is. People questioning what the president's powers are. Indeed, we're going to find out. There's lots to wonder about. One toolbox that's always been full, however, is the Canadian Prime Minister toolbox. Now, not an absolute power, I don't mean an absolute power, but in power over their own country, the Canadian Prime Minister, believe it or not, is the most powerful job in the Western world. Again, I don't mean absolute power projection. I mean the toolkit of powers they have over their own people. Nothing compares to the Canadian Prime Minister, believe it or not. So we're going to be talking a little bit about Mark Carney's power today. Is it soft? Is it hard? We're going to find out. I've got Dave Bradley in the house. We love Dave. Dave, how you doing, my man? Welcome once again to the Breakup Canada, also known as the All Out Podcast. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm enthusiastic about the future of Canada and America and the beautiful union that we all form together. What a week for Canada, though, huh? It's it's something else, man. It gets better and better. I don't even know where to start today. It really is quite a week of news in Canada. Canada cheating in curling, not looking so good on the curling front. Losing in the hockey game yesterday, of course, to the United States. Those were tariff-free losses. Tariff-free losses. They don't have to pay to lose. Losing is free. The tiers were free. They didn't have to pay a single moose. What do you call them again?
Moose shekels.
Moose shekels. You didn't have to pay a single moose shekel for all those tiers. Those were pro bono, courtesy of the United States. And of course, we found out last night through all of this confusion, discussion, floor crossings from Alberta. Is even an Albertan, Generu, that quit? We don't know. Nobody knows where he's from. But we had an announcement last night, of course, of an October 19th, 2026 referendum in Alberta. So let's hear your thoughts. Let's start with the Alberta referendum question. Pretty amazing stuff, Dave. You've been praying for this. Now, I know we'll talk about the type of referendum it is and what else is coming down the pipe.
Yeah, there's a little bit of caution on there from the independence community at the moment that they're going to somehow use this referendum announcement as a way to block or obfuscate the referendum that we've been trying to force, which should be around that time of year. So it's a little unclear whether there's going to be both questions on the referendum or, two separate referendums, or what the story is going to be.
Yeah. So, just for viewers at home, the story is the premier of Alberta, if you're an American, the governor of Alberta, yesterday announced a referendum indeed on, I think, four separate three questions, mostly about equalization payments or renegotiation, more or less, of federal relationship through the Constitution. Not a full blown constitutional renegotiation, but at least the equalization, or at least the funds paid for government services, which is the weird math they use to take money from Alberta every year. And the other question will be about immigration. So, in particular, immigration as a separate question. Alberta wanting to, like Quebec and other provinces, completely control its immigration, particularly when it comes to government services. So they don't want federally issued visas to come with a provincial service bill. So they want to be able to determine those people who are welcome to the province that get provincial benefits. They want to be able to issue their own visas to them. Now, indeed, as you're saying, there is a separate conversation out there for this referendum. But as I understand, a lot of people have said this could be rolled into that there could be extra, like if the votes get there, you just have an extra question on the referendum ballot, correct?
Yeah, and in theory, that's possible. The way that a lot of people are seeing this is that this is a way to take some steam away from the independence question, because really these are questions that a lot of Canadians in general, but a lot of Albertans are having about our position in Confederation and what that means to us, whether it's the bad deal that we're getting or all the immigrants that are pouring in that we have to pay for that we don't have any control over. And so there there might be a scenario where the referendum for independence gets put on the same ballot as these other referendums, and for the vast majority of the normies in the middle who they're the group that are really coming around, and a big part of the reason that they're coming around are these really hot button issues like immigration and like the transfer payments, the fairness in Confederation. And so I think by putting them on the same ballot, you kind of give people this either or out, that can give them a way to sort of vote for the status quo while still
Mhm.
demanding
Pressure
change.
valve.
And yeah, exactly. And but the fact is, like, we voted in a referendum years ago to renegotiate the transfer payments.
Did you? When was that? I didn't know about that.
That was in our last election, and but like it's meaningless.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
meaningless to, like,
It's
of
no
course we
leverage.
have to renegotiate the transfer payments, right? Like, we're the
Mhm.
ones paying them. It's the rest of the country that doesn't want to renegotiate them. And so, like, it's whether or not we say we want to limit immigration or we want to stop paying for their services, like, immigration is not currently under the provincial purview.
Yeah.
And places like Quebec, where they get to decide which immigrants they're taking, um, they've got a little bit more rights than us in this scenario. But the fact is, like, we don't only need to limit the number of immigrants that we're getting, we need to send back the vast majority of the recent ones that have shown up here who have no desire to join our society and have really just showed up to leech social services off of our governments.
So
And
would there be a separate discussion around creating your own provincial police force? Because as I understand, there is zero faculty in the state or the province of Alberta that would allow you to deport people from a provincial level. Like you
yeah,
don't have,
exactly.
at least there's no, like
We
you can't have a federal ICE, and then you don't have your own. You have to ask the RCMP, and the
yeah,
RCMP
exactly.
doesn't want to do that job. They want to
We
carry
we
it.
have we have provincial sheriffs, which could be put into a mandate like that, but I think that's part of the process anyway, is that we need a provincial police force, and the consultations are underway on, what a provincial police force would look like and who might benefit from that. So they're basically talking to a bunch of the small towns that currently are kind of policed by the RCMP.
Mhm.
The towns are paying for policing services. They're paying the RCMP, but they don't really receive much in the way of policing services at all,
Mhm.
unless there's, like, a major event like a shooting or something like that. You don't see the RCMP in most
Yeah.
of these small towns unless they're pretty much at two ends of the criminal spectrum,
Mhm.
where they do show up if somebody gets murdered.
Mhm.
They
Investigation.
probably don't. Yeah, they probably don't show up if somebody gets robbed, but then they spend a huge percentage of the rest of their time on very, very minor stuff like speeding tickets, because those come with revenue.
Mhm.
So you know, the
You guys
RCMP is
Mounties giving speeding tickets?
yeah.
No way.
That's where you get speeding tickets. And if you're driving around rural Alberta, the
Oh my
Mounties will be giving you speeding
didn't know
tickets.
that. Are you serious? I was gonna say that they don't get into those traffic things. I have no idea because obviously in Quebec they're completely banned from doing anything like that, right? In Quebec, they're there for murder investigations, cross-border international crime type stuff. They're not allowed to be deployed in any way, shape, or form into our normal everyday, like the FBI. They don't come around in the United States because someone's going too fast on the road. You don't get an FBI for Americans at home. Like the FBI doesn't give you speeding tickets, right? That's the equivalent. So you're telling me that the FBI equivalent, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, gives speeding tickets?
I've received many speeding tickets from the RCMP.
You guys are fucked.
Yeah.
You're
So
fucked.
the police force is something that needs to happen one way or the other.
Yeah.
Immigration is something that is obviously.
I mean, just to get that out of here. I mean, we in Quebec basically have state troopers, right? And that's all they do is highway. They do some murder investigation, usually local crime. If we probably only have about 40 murders, 30 murders a year in Quebec, the whole province. I mean, it's not a murder hotbed or anything. We have one of the lowest murder rates in the world. It's got to be. And so they don't really have much to do. I mean, we don't have any local police force, though. There's no such thing anymore in Quebec. And if you were wondering about that, there's zero. So there's one town in Quebec, and it's my town, that has a local police force, but that's only because it's a tourist trap, a literal tourist traffic trap, and they just make too much money to shut it down because everyone comes right off the highway and wants to bomb through this little beautiful town for skiers and bikers, and they just make too much money. They just bing, 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 bing. They get everybody. So it's the only one left, and it's just a tourist trap. That's it. So it's all state troopers.
Yeah, I think
we have no local police. There's no police force in my whole area. There's one office about 25 miles away from my parents' house, and they got about 4 cars for the whole area. I see them around every now and again. We don't really have speeding tickets other than that little town.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think anything we can do to get Ottawa's levers of control out from Alberta.
Well, it's looking harder and harder based on that floor crossing and gerrymandering and that story. So let's talk about that next. Tell me, do you think that Premier Smith's announcement last night was related to the floor crossing? So for context here, a floor crossing for Americans is when someone leaves a political party and joins another. And yesterday or 2 days ago, another conservative from Alberta, and Alberta is rarely electing liberals, and this guy did not have anything close to a competitive race in his riding, in his county. And in fact, he even retired after he won. And then he, I guess, was living in British Columbia, and they had to do the announcement yesterday of his floor crossing in the airport in Edmonton, because nobody even wanted to get out of the airport. So they just stayed in the airport to do the whole scheme. And I don't even think he's from his county isn't even from Edmonton. It's like another part of Alberta, as I understand. And so this brings Mark Carney essentially into majority government, which he never got from an elected mandate. He was given a minority government. He won the popular vote 43-41, and he got a minority in number of seats, which is typical in Canada. When you change people and personas, you often get minority governments. Minority governments, I think most people like, because it forces compromise, it forces people to get along. And now, other than a couple by-elections, it looks like a majority is baked in for Mark Carney without ever getting the elected mandate. So this takes away a lot of Alberta's sovereignty, a lot of, even if Alberta thought it had some representation from voting and all this stuff, it looks like that is not being treated very seriously. And I'll ask another question first, but that first one, I want you to address it.
Yeah.
If the referendum in Danielle Smith was in reaction to losing this fight with Carney.
So I don't know if it was in reaction. I don't know that it matters that much from the context of Danielle Smith. This does look like, her announcement looks like a rapprochement to the sort of nationalist Canadian forces, a step away from the independence movement. It looks like an attempt to throw a wrench into the independence movement. So I don't know that it has anything to do with the floor crossing. This guy with, crossed the floor very obviously was paid or extorted. And the way that I know that is because thousands of people on Twitter are saying this guy was paid or extorted. And if I was in a position like this and somebody made those kind of claims, the first thing I would do is say, no, I was not paid or extorted. And then I would start suing the people who are making false claims about me. But the fact is, these are very obviously true claims, and this guy does not want to sue anyone because he doesn't want this coming out in open court.
He turned his Twitter off right away.
Yeah. So this is a corrupt politician that really just exemplifies everything that's wrong with the country of Canada and this exact structure where you've got some guy from Vancouver representing a jurisdiction in Alberta changing sides to represent the Laurentian elite. Like, this is exactly why we need out of the system. Like, these MPs are not representing their constituents whatsoever. They're not even pretending. They're not even trying to pretend to create the illusion that they still represent their constituents. They're just openly, throwing it in our faces that they're in charge and they don't give a fuck.
And for context, the Liberal Party of Canada, I think, is the most successful political party of any European or North American political party since World War II. They've won the most elections, had the most success. So just think about how rare this is. This guy's riding never in history has voted Liberal. There's no instance of this ever, despite it being the most popular political party in the Western world. Only the Japanese Liberal Democrat Party, that has the supermajority now, is more successful of a first world, I guess you could say, country. I don't think Canada's first. I think only Japan's left in the first world. But what Canada has here is clearly a riding, a county that never showed an appetite, despite historical trends, to be Liberal, now being forced to be Liberal. And I want to talk about his reasoning, and I wonder how this would resonate in Alberta. I know how it's going to resonate with you, but I'm excited about it. His reasoning is that he was so moved by the Davos speech that Mark Carney gave, the Davos speech. And so I want to hear your take on the Davos speech, but I want to give one more little cue, which is Terry Glavin, who Terry Glavin is a lifelong left-wing guy, but he is probably the most credible left-wing guy in maybe the world. He's a real consistent guy in that he will criticize left-wing abuses of power openly. And he had a great article about the Davos speech saying that Carney was the leader on the world stage. And he said, except there's no such thing as a world stage. And it's just a bunch of theater kids. And the coalition he's now building against Trump and all these tariffs that we heard about today, and Trump saying these people would be dancing in the streets when they hear about the end of the tariffs. He says that this coalition that's being created is not even real. And the whole Davos thing is complete bullshit. So that was Terry Glavin. So I want to hear your take on this MP's excuse for changing parties as the Davos speech.
Yeah, it's just another ridiculous insult to our intelligence. Like, that's absurd, right? Like,
you weren't moved?
Yeah, I don't even know if that guy watched the Davos speech, right? Like, he's not attending Parliament. He's not attending his jurisdiction. Like, what is he doing? And why would we take this person seriously at all?
And now he also already announced he'd quit. And I wonder if there is some machination in there, because he said he was quitting and he never sat in Parliament. He never took a seat.
Yeah. If we're talking about the timeline here, the very obvious time to quit is right before the election. Like, if you're not willing to sit as a member of Parliament, don't run in the election. If you don't live in the area that you're running, don't run in the election. If you're not willing to represent the wishes of your constituents, don't run for the government. These all seem like really obvious things that our current system of politics is just completely abandoned. There's no actual tie between the actions of our governors and the interests of the people. They've just completely abandoned that and are not even pretending at this point.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to look at when you start to think about exactly how this Davosian fella Mark Carney has got to this point, and especially when you again pivot to the American perspective right now, and you see that with the tariff thing that just got announced with Trump, and obviously Trump has other plans, and he made a pretty obvious threat to Carney in the speech that we just covered here on Roxham TV, being that he said, I can see all these countries that are upset about the tariffs dancing in the streets right now. And he says they're going to regret it because I have way more tools in my toolbox in order to do this. Now, again, in the prelude to this, I said that the Canadian Prime Minister, of course, is the strongest leader when it comes to these toolboxes. Vis-a-vis their own population. I don't mean projection of power. I mean the tools available to the Prime Minister of Canada. It's a real kind of totalitarian situation when you actually add up what a Canadian Prime Minister with a majority government can do. There is no other role in the Western world really akin to it. It's the most powerful Prime Minister job around. There would, of course, be no confusion about him being able to put these tariffs like Trump has to live under right now. So
Yeah.
when you see this Davos fella, again trying to talk about the power of the powerless, but we're seeing, of course, that this fella had his birthday party paid for by Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the disgraced former prince, who's now in trouble for selling state secrets. They haven't even started on his prosecution for the pedal biking and whatever was going on with that. And so when you start adding up these powers and you start seeing that Mark Carney is now talking about the same protect the children stuff that Macron was talking about with online, getting rid of anonymity. He's going further into that this week. At what point are we going to have a conversation in Canada about the fact that we actually do have a type of dictator? I mean, if he becomes a leader, a majority leader, based on the powers that he has, much more than the American president. He's got everything he needs to, really not listen to anyone. So I understand that that in Canada anyway, that the
Well,
I'm back. I'm back. Just a little intermittent internet. Yeah, just a comment. Your point of view on the power of the Canadian Prime Minister and what can be done in these conditions. I don't know.
It's it's a little worse than you're describing already, I think, because it's really just kind of like a stack of incentive systems that have put us in a situation where even a majority government, or a minority government, is nearly a dictator in many cases, because we're now in a situation right now with our minority government where we have a very binary system in terms of outcomes. So if a major bill is being passed and it doesn't pass and it causes a confidence question, the government can fall. And so we're in a scenario now where we've got these minority, what is now and what really should be a very fringe party like the NDP. They're broke. They just went through an election, and it's very expensive to run an election. And because they're communists, they don't get a lot of support from the business community. And so they don't have a whole lot of money to run another election. They're basically in a situation where they can't trigger another election, regardless of what the agenda is from the Liberals. And so, we're already in that spot right now. It gets worse if he gets an actual majority. He doesn't really even have to ask the NDP. And, we're in a spot, especially from the Alberta perspective, where it's not only a majority, it's a majority that we realistically have no chance of ever removing with the current incentive structures. Because right now we're sending a lot of money, tens of billions of dollars every year from Alberta to the other provinces in the East to pay for their spending excesses, their social services, the mismanagement of their roads, all this nonsense that's going on in these, socialist shitholes. And why would the people of Toronto and Montreal ever decide to vote not to get that money? right? And so as long as we're in this situation where, presumably the Conservative Party would be the party that could potentially give some real representation to the West, and the Liberal Party is the party of the East, the party of the Laurentian elite, the party of wealth redistribution, people are just going to vote to keep getting free money. It's just a simple incentive system. It's human nature that people will vote for their own best interests. And as long as we're trapped in that system, we're in a death spiral. Canada is in the death spiral. It's more a matter of like, how fast can they steal all the money?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the core case behind Alberta independence and why we need out of here, is because we don't want to be in the death spiral.
Yeah, and the mental illness that's coming around with this death spiral is getting worse and worse. Again, going back to something Carney mentioned about C2, of course, when he said, lawful decryption methods, lawful backdoors. Of course, what he's talking about is state level sanctioned spying. And it looks like he's going to get that through. Doesn't look like it's going to be any trouble. They're going to do the docs thing too. They're going to do all the stuff that the other countries are talking about, like Australia with the we're trying to save the kids from the internet and social media. But what it really looks like is the content moderation stuff didn't work. So the only reason why you want to look into people's communications, the only reason why you'd want to dox everyone is just so they can straight up start arresting people. So I think we're at that point in the game. Like I've been sort of somewhat comfortable in my little Visit Canada setup, do my show from Canada sometimes. I'm not sure I can do that anymore, to be honest with you. I wonder. I'm not totally committed to not going back into Quebec yet, but I think we might be getting there pretty soon.
Yeah, we're getting close. We're getting to a point where, this show is probably illegal.
No, you're 100% a terror. I believe you are currently like being that you're in Canada at the moment. I do think you're in not a non-zero danger at the moment. You are, and I'm not far behind. I don't know if I just enter the country. I got to go get my passport renewed. I don't know how that's going to go. Honestly, I don't know how it's going to go. I have questions. Like I'm going to do it abroad because I don't trust going into Canada to do it anymore. I'm hoping that we've got some incompetence at the local level here, which is my bet. It's kind of your best bet. The problem with Canada is there's a lot of competency in the state. Actually, they have hired some of the best people left, and that worries me because I saw like there was. I think it was NVK who said it. Someone was saying, trying to do this virtue signal thing. Canada is its best when we attract the world's best and brightest. And he said, you've already expelled your best and brightest. So you're going to replace them with who exactly? So many people having left. I'm not sure I can continue to even sojourn in Canada. Like it's not safe for business there. And being not safe for business is pretty much the worst thing. I mean, it killed China. Like imagine China in its economic position has been totally altered from what it was in 2018, 2019, because we deem it not safe for business. And Canada is now going to be considered not safe for business. I don't know anyone who would invest money in Canada. No media company can function there. I know we're live on Rumble. It's the greatest Canadian media company there is. I don't think there's another Canadian media company worth as much as Rumble. None of the TV stations are. And of course, it's treated as a pariah. It's not even acknowledged. It has not much going on with Canada. They left Canada a long time ago. But indeed, it dire times, man, and you can see that the brain drain is only going to accelerate now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the brain drain is going to get much worse. And the silver lining, a couple things here. You mentioned the competency level. I actually have a little bit of the opposite opinion. I think that that's probably one of the main things that will keep us safe from our government in the near future is that they are shockingly incompetent. Like the idea that they're just going to show up and arrest people hinges on their ability to use a basic GPS, right? So we do have a little bit of leeway in there where their attempts to crack down on us will probably fail in a lot of ways because they are morons. But beyond that, these kind of crackdowns, especially if they start using them, they're just going to rally more people to the cause of independence. It's every time, like we always say, every time they do a cartoon supervillain move, more and more regular people wake up to the fact that these are evil people who have nefarious intent. They intend to steal from us. They intend to kill us. They intend to take our lives and our freedom and our resources and everything that we have. And the more people that wake up to that, the sooner we're getting out of here, basically. And that's just going to precipitate the death spiral and the brain drain. We're going to see a scenario where there are an awful lot more useful Canadians moving to Alberta, and all of the the useless people on the free money will move back to Ontario.
And even further than that, this brain drain, I think, with the tariff thing that just happened in the United States, and you heard Trump yesterday, news came out, he's talking about excluding Canada entirely from the free trade agreement, especially with the kind of nonsense that's coming out of Mark Carney's mouth lately. Of course, Trump is not a fool to it. We heard Carney the other day talk about how Canada was not a Christian country in response to Marco Rubio's statement. He did this in Quebec in the worst French I've ever heard, by the way. I honestly, it's unreal that they let this guy be. I mean, it's just unreal with the French that he was speaking. And he tried to make the argument that Canada is, of course, a civic country. So first of all, patriotism has never been lower. But second of all, the mischaracterization, of course, he tried to say that it was the speech was Christian nationalism. All Marco Rubio did was describe the Christian origins. He made it sound like he was making some case for a Christian right wing. Whether or not that is something he likes, that's not what he said. Now, I think he likes that, but it's not what he said. And Mark Carney went ahead and created that contrast. And of course, when I think of the failed attempts to negotiate the free trade agreement, again, with the brain drain, probably one of the most devastating things Trump can do, because indeed, if he tears up NAFTA, that's one of our most powerful labor mobility facets that Canadians have to the United States. I do expect Trump, however, if he does get rid of the North American Free Trade Agreement because of this tariff squabble that he's in, to offer new pathways to drain Canada further. What kind of effect do you think that would have? First of all, do you expect that to be part of this irregular warfare? Some more incentives to get the high IQs out of Canada to really fuck over the country? And I mean also the blue collar workers, to go further into that?
Maybe. The blue collar workers, I think, are a bigger deal. The sort of white collar high earner workers are already very, very significantly incentivized to leave Canada.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a first or fifth year software developer coming out of school in anywhere in Canada, really, your salary in Silicon Valley is going to be literally triple, and in US dollars what it would be here. And so the incentive system is already there. The brain drain's already going on. He just has to keep doing what he's doing. And the nice thing for Trump, and this is why Trump picked Carney, he obviously handpicked Carney with the whole 51st state thing coming out right when it did, leading up to the election. He wanted somebody that he could get into a fight with all the time, that he could very easily beat. And Trump doesn't even really have to do anything. Trump, you see these things like the Supreme Court decision on the tariffs. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's not going particularly well for Trump. But when you look at the battle with Canada, that's all going super well, because Carney, like I mentioned, is just a moron and will continue to make short-sighted, collectivist, virtue signaling decisions at every turn with very little care for the future, what that looks like in 6 months, let alone 5 years. And, he's on his mandate. Carney's mandate is to loot what's left of Canada for himself and his friends at Brookfield and the WEF.
Well, hold on. Tom Luongo is going even further, that it's not just the looting. It is to create a Ukraine situation to perhaps further create a contrast with the United States, where Trump walks into this international despot role because of Canada. And of course, you saw lots of calls online. Matt Walsh, I've never seen it as big as this week, where Americans are saying we should have some pity on these poor Canadians and go liberate them and go and invade. And I know I saw Fisher King, the great account, have one look at the oil map overlaid on North America and said, okay, let's go to Alberta. And that's from sort of your typical libertarian anti-war type faction inside of the Trump administration. And then news that Canada has a plan for the United States potential invasion, which is to recruit foreign mercenaries. They have a new immigration stream in Canada, everybody. Foreign soldier, no shit. If you're a foreign soldier and you want to immigrate to Canada, we have a new visa for you. We have a visa. You can come to Canada if you can hold a gun. Now, who do you think out there is a foreign mercenary, first of all, and is saying, oh, Canada, I get to fight the United States? I have a feeling it's the dumbest visa in the history of the world.
I imagine we might get a lot of really nice North Korean immigrants showing up with brand new Chinese gear, ready to fight the Americans on behalf of the WEF. But
that's what I mean. You know, these guys, like, if you listen to Tom Luongo and you look truly at what's happening to this British system, this extractive system, this divide and conquer system that's been around as Promethean Action and Susan Kokinda has mapped, you know, really since now it looks like it goes back to the French Revolution. Of course, we all know that Marie Antoinette never said anything like "let them eat cake." That's fake news. The French were embracing American style. You build it, you own it. You build it, you profit from it. The only thing we'll give you in this relationship is protection, but go out into the land and build it, not extractive colonialism, not tax on your tea and tax on your this and that, send me your tobacco, that the British started in America. And of course, if you look at the track record from then on, we have the fund both sides situation, right? We funded both sides, the British did, of the Napoleonic Wars, famously where the Rothschilds got their main foot in or their monopoly over the markets. We saw divide and conquer become the main story after the US Civil War precedes that. Then we go through this divide and conquer, the whole Israel Muslim thing forever. All of this being the British system rearing its head each and every time to maintain power, still reacting to the American Revolution 250 years later. And now we see that the whole jig is up with the Epstein stuff. We've seen the Rothschilds named. They're definitely the empire above Epstein. Is very clearly infrastructure. It's very clearly banking, messaging. This is not you work for Mossad or the CIA or MI6. It's nothing like that. It's something much bigger than that. Those are just clients that fit into the infrastructure, not really the infrastructure itself. And we see this as incentives and banking and psychological manipulation. And of course, Carney, his good old friend, arrested yesterday, Prince Andrew, formerly Prince Andrew. So are we seeing this war now really truly spill out? And is Canada really going to try and make their case that they're part of this old system? Can't anyone in that government see that it's falling apart?
Yeah, I mean, the system is, it almost feels like the tentacles are retracting. They're losing a lot of their grasp around the world. And it's interesting, something you said earlier when you said that, you know, Canada is not a first world country anymore. And, you know, we hear, oh, we're turning into the third world. But if you look at the actual reason, like what the first, second, and third world meant when those titles were conceived, was you had the first world, which was the capitalist bloc, the second world, which was the communist bloc, and the third world was the unaligned countries. And it just so happened that the third world unaligned countries ended up being all the shitholes that we now use. Like, that's pretty much how we use the third world, the term third world, to describe those countries, right? But in reality, it meant countries that were not aligned with either of the two main factions in the world. And we now are entering a period where we're kind of back to two main factions in the world again. they're just not framed in the same way, right? And so the second world, which was the communist faction, the Soviet bloc, etc., that was all set up by the British too, right? That was part of the same, create two sides, make them fight game that they have, pushed for hundreds of years and that they love. And now, that whole the Soviet system has fallen apart, but the communist collectivist, asset resource redistribution crowd is still in charge over there. And so that's the City of London, that's the WEF, Davos, etc. And we in Canada are very much in that camp. We're a second world country, without a doubt, firmly.
Yeah, and I would say, second world communist aligned, in the end, it really is, and this isn't really truly the definition of fascism, but I heard Susan Kokinda say it, the more or less the definition of fascism can be the gap between accountability to the population and having the capacity to sever yourself from feedback of the elected or of the electors of the people, and that there is no way for them to get satisfaction from your own failings. So if you fail, you don't owe them anything. You don't have to explain yourself. And so fascism, there's a million ways to characterize it for sure, but they probably get bogged down in definitions. She chose this idea of top-down structures that have no feedback loop for the bottom rung, which just have to suffer what they are to suffer. Exactly what Mark Carney said in his fake fucking psychological projection speech at Davos. It'll never not be funny to me to listen to a central banker of the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada talk about the power of the powerless. It'll be funny forever. I mean, that's what no one told us about World War III, how funny it was going to be. No one, you think we do have to count our blessings that other people fought wars in trenches and D-Day. And I'm glad that the way we fight is to get rich off of Bitcoin and shit talk and laugh at the fucking sludge people as they do their sludge oozing from one fucking sludge point of view to another, trying to say, I didn't know. What do you mean? We're the nice guys. The power of the powerless, buddy. Watching them ooze around like this is, you can't stop laughing. It's pretty funny. It gets funny where I saw a thing online where because the Italian crowd cheered the Americans winning the gold medal against the Canadians yesterday, that somehow Donald Trump has put a spell on the Italians. No, it couldn't be that the Italians are also populist, also, the origins of fascism of course, their country. And Maloney, of course, is part of this. And I don't know if you saw what Macron said, because Maloney was talking about the Front National guy who was mauled to death by Antifa the other day in Lyon, France. And she said all of Europe cries for this tragic protester who was killed. And Macron really legitimately came out and said, these nationalists always talk. If everyone just stays home, it'll be fine. Mind your own business. And if the sheep stay home, they will be protected, he said.
Unreal. I feel like the word fascism has kind of lost all meaning at this point.
It sure has. Trump did great when Mamdani was just
yeah. I like that. I like that definition that you gave me there from Susan Kokinda.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like the other, the left uses the word fascism very differently. They use it to just mean anything that isn't sufficiently virtue signaling, anything that scares me, anything that I disagree with and I'm not willing to intellectually honestly confront. They say that's fascism. And
theater kid stuff too. It's like, if it has the trappings, if it has the theatrical flair of Hitler, then it's Hitler. That's always been that Trump is charismatic. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. And
that people like his,
that word I think has lost most of its meaning. I'm pretty much abandoning it, although it would be nice to have an opposing word that we could call them that would encompass everything that's wrong with them.
Such people.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have like fascism. Fascism comes with all the historical, like baggage, all the guilt that we've been told to have.
Bro, Communist is not an insult to these people.
Yeah. No, it's
don't-
not.
No,
It's not.
they love it. Yeah. So what do you call them? It's true. No, it's a problem. It's a problem. Canadian might be an insult soon. It's
Yeah.
getting pretty close. I don't like telling people. I swear to everyone now, I'm a Bitcoiner first. If they press me, I'll say I'm a Quebec sovereignist. If they really press me, I'll say I'm from Montreal. And that's as far as I'm getting into it. Because, I mean, honestly, it's really cringe.
Yeah.
It's really cringe, you know,
One
watching
thing
this.
that you might notice if you look up any of our marketing, the website, anything like that for the Bitcoin Rodeo, we don't have the word Canada anywhere.
I didn't know that.
Come to the Bitcoin Rodeo in Calgary, Alberta.
Yeah, well, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. I'm definitely going to be there. It'll be the end of my book tour, and I'll be headed first to some U.S. locations because, in general, I always think it's a better idea if you're talking about Canada to first talk about it in the States, because Canadians, they're always interested in what's happening in the United States first and foremost. So I'll do a bit of a tour of Bitcoin physical spaces to try to help Canadians get their mind around that. But I'd love if you could come around with me on some of this tour. I'll be in San Francisco and Las Vegas and Nashville, New York City at PubKey, DC at PubKey. So not all places, but I'll give you my schedule at some point if you want to.
Yeah, let me know.
Have a little fun at some of these Bitcoin physical spaces. We can, because Americans are really curious. You see online all these people saying it's time to invade and liberate Canada, but a lot of people are actually just wondering, like, what the hell happened? Because I don't think a stock has ever fallen so quickly as the Canadian identity stock. I mean, we were literally 10 years ago, 12 years ago, just before Trudeau, probably the highest brand nation in the world. I mean, you put a maple leaf on something and everyone said, oh, that's high quality, we love that. It's the opposite now. Like I said, I was never in my life embarrassed to say I was Canadian, except for when people put the Canadian flag on their backpack.
I put a Canadian flag on my arm.
Yeah, I know.
I had to get rid of it.
Not a flag, just a maple leaf.
Just a maple leaf. Yeah, I put the maple leaf, but intending to represent the flag, intending to represent Canada.
Yeah.
And it was
the Redux.
Yeah, it was one of the only things here. I've got in Alberta here now. Yeah. It was one of the only things that I could do that I was like, what will I not regret when I'm old?
Yeah.
And I didn't even get that old and I regretted it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is incredible to have watched this descent and watch the brand value sink and just watch, because that's effectively why Canada is not going to make it. And it's not just the brain drain of losing your best and brightest for economic opportunities. It's the idea that people like you, who would have actually defended Canada against American incursions or any of this stuff, not even a full generation ago, just a few years ago, it would have been unthinkable to not stand with Canada in any of these types of trade wars or to even root for Canada. I mean, I'm actively not rooting for Canada. Like the Olympics, I was happy when the Americans won. The Canadian hockey team, I love all these Canadian players. I can't bring myself to root for them. If they make it to the gold medal, I don't know, they're playing right now or something. I don't care. I don't watch this stuff anymore. It's just amazing how quick that changed. And, Bitcoin did that to me in a sense, because I'm sure like you, my nationalism has been completely replaced by the separation of money and state argument and what Bitcoin has offered as far as like me just caring about my own personal evolution and what national identity is there. Remember, national identity is like a new thing anyway, right? That only started with this whole British French Revolution and all that stuff. It wasn't really a thing before that. Ethnic was real. Germany was not a country, it was an ethnicity. And so Germany is a newer country than Canada. So, just last comments from you on, whether or not I know you definitely don't think of yourself as Canadian. Is Alberta enough? Does Bitcoin supersede it? How do you orient yourself in this change?
Yeah, I mean, the construct of a nation state is one that is designed to get people to forgo their own best interests in the interests of those running the nation state.
The corporation to incorporate. Yeah.
And it's interesting that they're called a nation state because most nation states in the world, most countries in the world right now are not an ethnicity. right? There's very few that are ethno-nation states. There's almost none, in fact.
Japan,
Even
closest.
long-standing ones, where you might look at France and say, okay, well, that's an ethnicity. That's not an ethnicity. That's the ethnicities of France are the Bretons and the various ethnic groups that make up the region. And so they've created this fiction of this idea of this thing that you belong to that's greater than you, and have been feeding this lie in the interests of pushing collectivism on all of us. And ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. It's like, how about no? Like, how about no? How about my country can either do something for me to make my life better or fuck right off?
Oh, BTC Sessions in the house says, ask Dave what he thinks about Danielle Smith announcing her own referendum in October, potentially diluting the separatist movement and creating fatigue, or could it be viewed positively?
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what we talked about at the top of the show here, where like it might be a way to sway some of those middle people. Some people who are unhappy with the current situation might go into that referendum being like, well, maybe we could stay in Canada if we just fix transfer payments and immigration, which is true. Like, if you just fix those things, there'd be a massive improvement to the quality of life in Alberta. There'd be a huge difference to just the pure math on how we're getting screwed. And if they stopped screwing us so bad, maybe we would stay. But I think in this case, it's probably some grains of false hope that they're putting in there to pull voters away from the independence question. And then there's a little bit of a hedge there too, in the sense that, what she's planning for, and what I think a lot of the political elite, a lot of the establishment are thinking, is that we're going to narrowly lose the independence referendum. We're going to get 40-45% of the vote, but lose. And if we come out of that election, that referendum, with 80% saying we need to renegotiate, 70% saying we need our own immigration controls, and 40% saying we should be our own country, that's a pretty powerful mandate for Danielle Smith to go back and negotiate with the federal government. I don't think there's any negotiating with this federal government. They're not going to play fair at any point. Yeah. And I think and hope that she probably realizes that, and that there is kind of a need from her perspective, both politically and personally, to sort of exhaust all of her options and say, we tried everything to stay in Canada. And, I think she'd be obviously a very powerful leader for the independence movement if she came out as supporting independence. But right now, I think the calculus is that the math is not there to make it popular enough for her to win. And if she were to come out as a supporter of independence, that might lead to her losing her government if we don't achieve independence. So
what you need is the other bad boy of Confederation, Quebec, to start causing troubles in the east and divert the eye of Ottawa to its favorite son, and let Alberta stew in its mischief and then take the flank that way. So that's the only way I can see you guys getting a fresh kick here.
Well, and there's sort of interesting math to this whole thing too, right? Because honestly, if Quebec left, that would really help. It would change the math significantly on transfer payments, and we would just not be getting
screwed in that way, man. No, they would just change.
We would, for sure.
Ontario's fucked. You just owe Ontario money.
The funny thing is that I saw there's an Ontario independence movement. Obviously, that's done by people who just don't understand the problem in general. How can you remove Ontario from Canada when it really is Canada?
It's Canada. Yeah.
What makes up Canada? But I mean, if we could convince them to leave, then we'd probably all be fine.
Yeah. There you go, BTC Sessions. I just want to also put a couple others up here. Johnny Midas says, Noel's funniest comment yesterday, pound for pound, sludge for sludge. Canadians are some of the stupidest people in the world. Oh my fucking God. Thumb it, indeed. Greetings, Nolan and friends. We got a full house over on Rumble too. Just want to read some of the comments. I haven't been able to do it. Tariff shot down. Not a serious person. Competency plus malice equals danger. Indeed. Stay away from the competent states. And there's BTC Sessions again. Thanks for coming, BTC Sessions. We appreciate it. You should come on the show sometimes, BTC Sessions. We like to talk about Canada. It's not always as testy as today, but this was a spicy week in Canada. I'm glad you can make it, Dave. Pardon the lateness. I was given a talk on. I'm pretty bullish on this Ontario separation, to be honest. I hope to be able to conjure some help for you. I'll be back in Quebec meeting with the sovereignist folks when I get back. Hopefully they buy what I'm selling, which is they are on the precipice of being a great Bitcoin country if they just realize what they've got and that Canada and the banking aren't going to help them anymore. And there's nothing left to suck out of Canada, the vampires they are. The energy vampires that they are need to focus on something else. And I think we're going to get there. So Dave, I appreciate it. Thanks for sticking around and coming late. And I'll see you next week. Of course, being Canada, there'll be so much hilariously stupid shit to talk about that we're going to have a great time next week as well.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll show up for this show and we'll be like, wow, government didn't do anything retarded in the last week. I guess we'll just go home.
No. It's not possible. We can't pray for such things. That we don't live in that world. Fiat failure is a psychological phenomenon, and it can't help but bring these psychological, just like we're dealing with what's been in the shadows with the Epstein thing. These are all our repressed psychological issues, and that's why Canada is really going crazy. Fiat just literally, in Jungian psychology frames, it lets you be this mentally ill. Canada's mental illness as a polity, as a nation state, is now oozing out of its fiat-riddled mind. And we're getting what happens when you have no feedback loops. The process of individuation is about accountability. It starts with accountability. It is the feedback. When you have no money that you can count, you start getting really crazy shit, Epsteinish shit. And now Canada is exactly in line and aligned with these countries. And so I expect nothing but clown world humor. It's an inverted world. So there you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Take it easy. All right, team. That's Dave Bradley with you. That is the end of our week of live coverage here in the Great Awakening. Let me help out Dave here. I don't know why I can't choose which screen. Don't know what's going on. I know what I can do, Dave. Here. Peace, Dave. So indeed, that's the end of our week of live coverage. See me again. I'll be around at 9 a.m. Eastern time on Monday. Our coverage begins earlier in London. We'll have the great Connor Sefton there with our morning show. I'm not sure if our full Monday morning lineup is in queue, but we'll be back at it Monday. If anything crazy breaks over the weekend, you'll see it here on Roxham TV. We'll fire up the old podcast, fire up the old studio, and bring it to you. For now, I just want to thank you for coming. I'm about to play the logo. After the logo, you'll see the thanks for watching screen. I want to tell you, thanks for watching. Everyone, have a great weekend. See you Monday. Peace.